welcome to Heads Up. Now, the concept of learning disability is certainly not new to India. But what about our approach to it? Has much changed in that aspect? Well, startups are now coming up with new and improved devices and technology to help those with learning disabilities. So, in a way, startups are literally breaking the barrier in this field. When your child finds it difficult to cope with studies, many call it laziness. Some even dismiss the situation as just a phase. But in reality, the reason for this could be very different. Your child could be suffering from conditions that cause learning disability, be it dyslexia, where the child finds difficulties with word decoding, fluency, spelling, vocabulary, or even comprehension for that matter, or dyscalculia that affects their ability to count, learning facts related to numbers, or sometimes even the inability to tell time. Every learning disability needs to be tackled differently, and experts believe that while we have come a long way, a more effective screening process still needs to be established.
I think research has sufficiently indicated beyond doubt that dyslexia can be picked up. Children who are at risk for dyslexia, they can be identified as early as 5 years, and best practice indicates that it's good to pick up this problem early, because then you can put into place timely intervention, and that timely intervention would lead to better outcomes, not just in their academic life so that they'll start doing better in their studies, but also later on in their professional life.
What are the tests and how do you judge the level of dyslexia that the individual suffers from? Experts have devised a battery of 12 subtests especially to identify the category of dyslexia. The tests involve identifying pictures, solving puzzles, and answering simple questions that evaluate fluency in reading, writing, motor coordination, attention span, and even ability to reason.
After this screening is done, should the child be identified as being at risk, the usual procedure is you put in place a certain amount of intervention for a certain period of time, and these are specific strategies which are shared with this child and the parent by most commonly the special educator or the teacher if she is involved, and this is carried out for a period of time. And if the child is depending on the monitoring that happens and how much of improvement is made, etc., they might refer for a diagnostic evaluation, and that is typically done by a trained, qualified clinical psychologist, and that in turn will set off a number of different aspects of intervention, like a consistent, ongoing, what's called learning support for different subjects that they are considered, that have been identified as weak points, in this case say reading skills.
Today, parents don't just depend on counseling to tackle their child's learning disorder. With evolving technology, devices and electronic equipment play a major role in aiding those with learning disorders. Startups like Barrier Break, for instance, are helping with this. Founded by Shilpi Kapoor, Barrier Break has tied up with government and private schools to ensure more and more people with disabilities like learning, visual impairment or hearing impairment for that matter, have the right devices at their disposal to make learning more effective.
Interestingly, at least as far as the products go, because the Indian market is not wide enough for us to do our own local research, we sometimes have to rely on what's happening internationally. What are the trends internationally? What are the problems they are facing? And then adapt that to India. So then we might bring in those products, take them to a larger group of people, understand what the segment requires, and then decide whether we want to bring those products to India.
What's the time? One aspect that has often been overlooked when it comes to aiding those with learning disorders is simplifying the virtual space for them. Surfing the web is one key barrier that Shilpi's team is working on breaking at the moment. From coming up with a software that helps you read out your Facebook posts and documents aloud, to a mobile app that's on its way and will help do the same. Making the web friendly for those with learning disabilities is the next big step most startups in this field are attempting to do.
The aim of the organization when we started off was really to make the web inclusive. Right? When you go on a website, it might be a person with learning disabilities, visual disabilities, mobility impairment. Anybody can access the website, including an elderly person. Right? But are these websites really disabled friendly? So we started off with that as the first mandate. And as we went along, we started to identify other areas where people with disabilities did not have access in India. So a simple thing was like, when you go into a computer class in a school, every computer looked the same. There was nothing that would meet the needs of people with disabilities. There was a need to bring products that could be accessed by people with disabilities. So we then started our second line of assistive technology products.
Take the Dolphin Say So software for instance. This helps children with dyslexia read and write more effectively by reading the content out loud and performing an advanced spell check. This color-coded keyboard, for instance, helps children with low vision and learning disorder master keyboarding skills. The main aim of these devices is to magnify content and project it in a way that helps capture the attention of the individual.
When you're testing your websites to make it accessible, we just don't test it only from a guideline perspective that exists for meeting accessibility requirements, but we make sure that we get them tested with persons with different types of disabilities. That gives us an edge, whether it's an Indian market or internationally. Because the users themselves give you a feedback that yes, this functionality works for them or does not work for them. If it works for them, what is the good in it and what is that things can be improved on. So that gives you feedback from the end user rather than a person who is trying to use a product which is not meant for them.
To make these apps, one doesn't just need the technical skills and engineering know-how. One also needs to learn the nuances of dealing with individuals with learning disabilities.
Aditi was started in 2007, and then why it took us, it took us about 4 years to stabilize it. It's such a simple design, but the reason why it took us 4 years to complete this design, because these children, it's very tough to reach these children, and the engineering team always used to have an ego of I am right, I am an engineer, I know the technology. They do something, they take it to the child will not smile, she cannot smile, because for them the pain should be solved. So we have to take back the design, come to the drawing board, change the design, again take it to the child. So it went on in a spiral model. Okay. Finally it got settled very recently due to that user story, that particular user story. So it takes a long time to do something for these children, especially the development community should understand the needs of the special children in a quick manner, where innovation will really help.
While engineers are now researching and coming up with technology that helps with learning disabilities to an impressive extent, an important question is just how much demand do these products see in a country where it is a challenge to even get people to admit that their family member is suffering from a disability. The stigma often overpowers the urge to seek help.
People do not want to accept that they have people with disabilities in their family or even in the education setup. Today we are seeing more of learning disabled within the inclusive environments, but even then people don't necessarily want to talk about these issues. Most of the time they do not want to resort to technology. They would try and say that no, let the child manage, right? But when technology can give you those advantages, why not take them on? So whether it's society, whether it's the education system, whether it's the parents, we need to embrace technology, and India is far from doing that yet.
According to reports, in India, 10% children have learning disabilities. 1 in 200 people have autism, while an estimated 30 million children are known to be dyslexic. But despite these jarring statistics, much is yet to be done to improve learning conditions and provide adequate funding to organizations tackling this challenge. While the United States has a federal law called the Individuals with Disabilities Act that mandates public and private agencies to provide early intervention and provides all services needed for those with special needs. This includes funding for education for children up to the age of 21. India, on the other hand, has only recently introduced the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Bill in Parliament, after repealing the previous Persons with Disabilities Act.
There is a twofold change which I would really love to see in India. The first is I would like people to have much higher expectations of what children with disabilities can achieve. And second, I want to be able to see the government and various public organizations in India step in to be able to provide all of the technology, all of the assistance that is needed for these children to achieve their true potential.
On the other side of this short break, Abhishek finds out more about the role of a special educator when it comes to helping children with learning disabilities cope with their academics in school.